Welcome to episode 96 of The NERO Show. In today's episode,
there's some big YouTube drama and I'm involved this week. Chris, Peak Talks put me on roast for apparently lying about my Chinese carbon frame. We go through all the details.
Campy strike a new marketing direction and Colnago release a rim brake bike. Is it back?
Chris won the New South Wales State Masters Road Race Championships, so we have a look at some of the gear that was on show by the other riders.
And cycling vlogging is back. I'm absolutely loving some of these channels. We're going to talk through them all. All right, let's get into it. All right, here I was thinking I was going to come in and spend 2 hours talking about my bike race on the weekend.
Not today.
That has not occurred, Jesse Coyle, because Peak Talk has called your bike a piece of shit, a dog of a bike.
Peak Talk certified dog of a bike. And coming in late in the piece, because this video he did is only uploaded 6 hours ago. So yeah, unfortunately, we've got to clear the program because we've got some digging to do into this.
I think we need to do a good old-fashioned YouTube reaction, Jesse
This
Coyle.
is what this is. So for those that aren't really fully in the YouTube space, maybe you're listening to a podcast, but you're not quite sure what's going on. The frame I got and that I've been riding and that I've been enjoying is the Tavello Arrow. Tavello did the classic thing, which is you basically message a bunch of people that have an audience and offer to send them the frame, and in return, hopefully they do a video on it. So you've also seen the likes of, Peak Talk got his hands on one, GC Performance has one. Am I missing anyone? Joe from China Cycling, obviously he sells Tavello, so he's got one. And so you've seen them popping up around the place. Those two guys, Lucas and I think some of his teammates that are racing crits in the US, they've got them. It looks like he started with them, then the teams ended up on them. So that we've seen bits of them around, but there hasn't really been a review of it yet. And so Peak Talk's come out and done his review, and he's really not happy with it. He's basically laughing at the quality control and kind of going, the title of the video, Tavello Arrow, not ready. Now, the reason why this is causing a bit of a stir is because he seems a bit confused around how he's seemingly the only one that's having these issues, and everyone else is ranting and raving about how good the bike is and how positive it's all been, myself included, and he's kind of going, everyone else must be shills, and his commenters are getting on board, and we're going to break down what he's said, the issues he's had with this frame. I will then also fold in if I've seen them with my frame, and we'll go from there, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it. So I want to dive straight in. We'll have some chat after. I'm just going to go, what issues has he had? Have I had those issues? And see if we agree or disagree. Now, people might go, Jesse, why are you making such a big deal? Why are you taking this so personally? What's the go here? Play the section of his video at 4 minutes 40 in. He's basically called me out for lying or not doing due diligence into this build. So play that section.
Other channels, because they'll just ride and take pictures for Instagram and have their boutique bike shop build up for them.
Jesse, mate, I'm talking about you.
He is saying, let's be clear, he's saying that you are misleading the audience.
Seemingly
That's
so.
what he's saying.
Yep.
So let's call a spade here. Through either negligence or worse, some form of hoodwinking the audience, hiding these facts from the audience. All right, let's go into it.
For short, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Most of the issues he had, I didn't have. The only issue I had was with the bottom bracket, which I did disclose on the episode 3 weeks ago, which was solved by running a different bottom bracket. All the other issues he had, if you're not interested in listening to any of my other chat, I didn't have. And so I don't know what you're calling me out for. I didn't have those issues. That was issues with your frame. You could have messaged and asked before you put me on roast, and so now I'm going to go through and pick you bit by bit. Firstly, he loves his culture war shit. Oh, Coyle got it built by a boutique bike shop. He didn't even know how it was built. He's just out there riding it. Wrong. It was built by, firstly, Jared at Bruvello, who is basically a self-starter, basically not the opposite of a boutique bike builder. He does a lot of commuter. He recently moved to a studio, but he was coming out of his garage. Now he's opened up a one-man shop. He does lots of commuter builds, entry, mid-level builds, gravel builds. He is the opposite of a boutique bike builder. I was there the entire time he built the bike from start to finish, including when I then had to go off to another bike shop to buy a replacement bottom bracket after it didn't fit in the undersized bottom bracket shell. I've got video of all of that. So to think I dropped this off at my boutique shop and came back and just rode it, totally wrong. I was there. It was an entire day. I was at the bike shop. So that was just factually incorrect. and a wrong assumption on Peak Talk's part. Nice narrative he would like to play, but he's just wrong. And Caish as well. Now, Caish do some really nice boutique builds, but they are like the biggest on one, in 2024, probably the biggest online retailer in Australia, and certainly in Sydney, the biggest bike shop. They've got like 3, they've got Marrickville, the CBD store, a store in Melbourne. They're like a big chain. They're not a boutique builder. And Edwin, who's been on the show that built it as well, experienced mechanic.
I don't know if I want to jump in just yet with this, but no, I'll come back to it because from my position here, he's essentially called Edwin a shit mechanic because he's either called him a shit mechanic or again, someone who has seen these issues and hidden them because we're about hiding the truth from people for the sake of, I'm not sure. But I'll come back to that.
Sure. Yeah. So essentially just calling me someone who just rode the bike, take photos for Instagram and wasn't there during the build process. Just a lie. I was there the entire time. Let's go through his video and the bits that he said. First, he started on the handlebars. He said they aren't very stiff. I'm going to quote, very, very sorry, I'm going to go into this. I just want to say, this is all stuff Tavello should be defending on themselves. If I was them, I would make a reply in the comments on his video outlining all the issues. They sent me a frame. I'm not in any way affiliated with Tavello, so I'm just defending my points.
Your lack of skin in the game, we'll get onto that as well. Definitely. Let's just
going to sound
to the points.
Really defensive. Like, oh, why are you trying to stand up for Tavello? Anyway, he said the handlebars were, quote, very, very flexy. That's just a lie. Played the sprint from Heffron on Sunday. I did a 10-second power PB on almost the third ride I did on that bike. Sprinting, I can do 1,500 watts max, 1,350 to 1,400 for 10 seconds. That I've ridden the Vision Metron 5D bars, the Black Ink integrated bars, which I do think aren't very stiff. I've noticed flexing, which I've said before. And also the Pro Vibe Evo handlebars, which are super expensive. I had them last. These are in no way any more flexy than any of those. So he stood in the video, he stood over it and with the bike static and put all his weight in it and goes, oh, it's flexy. What kind of shit engineering is that? You need to test it in the conditions you're riding it. Go and do some sprints in it. I'm telling you, they're not flexy handlebars. Not to mention, in the handlebars, you want some degree of flex anyway for comfort's point of view. But in terms of sprinting flexion, these aren't flexy handlebars. They're really good for sprinting. So I think he's just making that up. And he says there's no flare on the drops. That's true. Personally, as I've said before as well, I don't like flare on the drops because I race a lot in the drops, so I like to have the narrowness of the bars carried through to the drops. Most people do prefer flare though. So if you want flare on the drops, these aren't flared. So that's a valid point, even though I think that's a positive from my book.
If you're going to rip a bicycle component for the way that it feels when you're riding on a test that's not riding it, it's an irrelevant claim. Sorry, that's referring to the stiffness of the handlebar situation.
Yeah, it's just wrong. He also didn't mention, and this was the one thing about the handlebars that I thought was insane, is the range of lengths and widths. I got a 130 long and a 36. Roval, you can't do that. Pretty much any other mainstream brand, you can't get that configuration. So that was a positive point, which he may discuss in his actual review, but I think it was bit misleading to skip over the biggest positive of that bars and then make up a negative. He said you can't run cables once you've got the hoses through the gap to do the integrated cables through the headset spacer. It would be hard to fit a Di2 cable through. That is true. Jared at Bruvello, when he built it, mentioned, it's pretty tight here with 2 of these hoses. I really wouldn't be wanting to doing a cabled Di2 build. Which isn't the case for 12-speed or the L2 grip set he put on because it's wireless connection between the shifters and the derailleurs. So that is a tight spot. That's a fair thing to point out. Now, he didn't actually test if it would work. He was just speculating that the gap was quite small and it might be difficult to fit that through. So, yeah, I'll agree with him there. Potential issue. Maybe if you're running an 11-speed grip set that has cables. Fair enough. He said that the seat post clamp should have a grommet on top of the seat post wedge to stop grit getting in. I disagree. I mean, on my Bianchi XR4, it didn't have a grommet. The Devel didn't have a grommet. If it came with some flappy rubber grommet, I would take it off because it would flap around. The S5 doesn't have a grommet. this idea that all this grit's getting in there is ruining the wedge, I think is an engineering overcomplication. I've never had that issues on any of the bikes I've ridden, so I disagree. The uncut fork, he said the uncut fork length is too low. So by default, it comes with the top cap and then about 2.5 or 3 centimeters more of spaces. So it's about 3 centimeters total of spaces under the stem. That's as long as the fork comes, or his fork comes. I didn't actually measure my one when it came. That's how long it is his on the biggest size frame. Other bikes come with more. So if you want to run a gigantic stack, you can. That is a fair point. But at the same time, Pete Torque is like 1,000 centimeters tall and it's a Chinese brand frame. You knew the stack and reach going into it. He's bought the biggest size frame and then said, 3 centimeters of spaces isn't quite enough. Well, you probably, if you needed 4 or 5 centimeters, just don't buy the frame. Check the stack and reach before you buy it, as we discussed on the show a few weeks ago, getting the right size frame. So yeah, if you want a really relaxed position, this is not the bike for you. The stack is quite low. The race bike. Now, I actually agree. I mean, I think generally to fit more people, the head tube should be taller. But again, that's personal preference.
And it's also something we've discussed a lot about on this show, that the larger sizing models from Chinese brands tend to be wacky because guess what? The domestic market that they sell a lot of these to don't have a lot of these frames being sold. And I think he alluded to the fact that this was potentially the first mold of the 58. Probably was. It's probably the only one that's been made because there's not a big call for it. And again, that's something we've talked about a bit in the past. Be careful of the bigger frames.
I mean, that's a point which I sort of agree with. I just don't, it's not a negative. It's just, it's not the right geometry frame for you, most likely. So don't buy it. No rubber seal or weather seal on the headset bearing. That is true. So mine also has under the headset top cap, there is air in there which you need because you don't want it rubbing on the bearings or on the frame. But yeah, grit could get in there. It's not like the nice round ones you had on the old school bikes where it's sealed all the way down and no grit can get in there. So that is true. The headset bearings will likely wear out faster than an old school setup where it's nicely covered. So, yep, fair play. The bottom bracket, he said, was undersized and a bit egg-shaped. Mine also had this issue. So as I said, we tried to install I'm running a 30 millimeter spindle. So I needed a different bottom bracket. So Joe sent me the Cybre one, which is a thread-in press fit. We couldn't get that in. That had to come out. And then I went and bought a SRAM one with just 2 separate bearings with a plastic kind of mold. And that can just deform if the bottom bracket is a bit undersized and fits in. And so that is an issue. The quality control, it would be nice if it was if it was not necessarily perfect, but within a better tolerance, so the bottom bracket is round, and then your screw-in cups you can use. If I bought that Cybre bottom bracket, I'd be pretty pissed. I'm then out $130, $150 with this bottom bracket I can't use because the shell's undersized, and so that's not good. I had that issue. The only thing is, it's just a fixable issue because I just went and bought a separate bottom bracket with a shell that has more give. I haven't had any issues since. And so Jared was aware of that. I mentioned that on the show. Now, Edwin, who put the Shimano on because I bought it from Caish, he did a full strip and rebuild too because that's just what he likes to do. He takes things apart, puts them back together. I didn't mention to him the thing about the bottom bracket. He pressed the bottom bracket in. He didn't get out his bloody device to measure the roundness of the bottom bracket. There wasn't an issue that he noticed that the bottom bracket was out. Because when you use the bottom bracket that allows for those issues to be fixed, you're good to go. Now, fair, maybe my bottom bracket won't last as long because it's a bit out of shape and that'll cause premature wear on the bearings. Yep. But my bike, the cranks still spin well. I'm racing it. That problem's fixed by using a different bottom bracket. Shouldn't happen in the first place, but I'm not here crying about it. The bike still works.
Okay, but is that something you should have highlighted because we went through the build on the show, didn't we? Yes, we did. You know, you've been essentially called out here for avoiding the truth or something along those lines. Is the bottom bracket situation something you should have gone into more detail for?
I mean, I called it out. I told the story. I had to go to Case, get a different bottom bracket because we couldn't screw it in. I'm pretty sure you even put in the B-roll of Jared trying to screw that thing into the undersized bottom bracket and almost ruining his tool. I mean, I mentioned it. If fixed by running a different bottom bracket, I haven't done a review of the bike yet. That is coming. I will do a separate video on my own channel reviewing, and I will mention it again there. I don't know what am I meant to, like...
Yeah,
I would be lying if I got up here and was like crying about the undersized bottom bracket because it was an issue that was fixed by running a different product. So I would be more dishonest if I was making this big hoo-ha about the bottom bracket because as the bike sits now, that's not a problem anymore. That's just how it is.
Is there any other... So just coming back to the specific issues, because I'm going to get onto the...
Next issue Peak Talk had was that his seat post was super tight in the frame. You could see him. He got it in there. He could barely get the thing out of the frame. That looked terrible. I didn't have that. I don't have that issue at all. Mine is perfect. So I'm sorry. My seat post in the seat tube fits perfectly. It hasn't slipped and it hasn't gotten stuck. They've cooked his frame. Or the dimensions are wrong because he's on a larger size. For the record, I'm on a 540. He's on a 580. I just didn't have that problem. And seemingly no one else as well. Like, we messaged GC Performance. He hasn't had that problem, so I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, that's terrible. Why? Like, it's not the right size. The bottom bracket that came with the frame. So when you buy the frame, they'll send you a bottom bracket to use that's only for 24mm Shimano spindles. His was just terrible quality. The size wasn't quite right, and the plastic was cracking and it just looked like crap. I never even touched that bottom bracket because I'm using a 30mm spindle. I got given a Cybre one to use, which then got ruined because the bottom bracket's undersized. Bought a SRAM one. That was bad. I didn't use that bottom bracket. So I'm sorry. Maybe should I have installed the bottom bracket I was never intending to use to test it? I don't think so. Unfortunately, if I did, maybe I would have realized there was an issue. That's all I have to say on that one. The seat post clamp for him was rough. The edges were all burred up. I didn't have that issue. Mine were fine. I don't know I don't know what Tavello have done when they sent his out. That looked crap. Like that's going to eat into the seat post. So I don't know how that happened. Mine wasn't like that. I'm pretty sure GCs weren't like that. I'm interested to see what maybe I should have messaged Joe before and see. He definitely had the same bottom bracket issue. I don't know if these other issues he also had. But, I didn't have that issue. He was annoyed there was no size markings on the headset bearing. So if that wore out and you wanted to replace it, you have to go to Tavello or whatever that is. That's fair. There's no markings on the bearing. Fucking hell. I'm not a DIY home build. I wouldn't even, Is that a problem? Yeah, I guess. Fair. Yes, I'll give him credit. The headset assembly with the top cap. He basically was complaining that he might have issues getting it up to enough torque to get enough preload through the headset that it stops it rocking. Not an issue I've had. I don't get any play in the fork when it's torqued up. So I don't know what to say. But again, like a potential, like a theoretical engineering thing of it might be hard to get the preload, but in reality, I haven't had that issue. And and neither of the mechanics that built the bike mentioned any issues with the headset assembly. So take that for what you will. And that is top to bottom. So to summarize, out of all the issues he listed, there's only two that I had. Now, first one is the grit that gets under the headset top cap. Okay, not that big a deal, in my opinion. The bottom bracket being undersized that's bad. I had that issue. It's annoying. It was fixable by running a different bottom bracket. And that's what I did, and I mentioned it. Everything else he had, I'm not lying. I just didn't have those issues. I don't know what Tavello have done. It's on them they should, as I said, leave a comment and admit what the issues are. Go and look into it and fix it for future. But
so they're the individual issues that were highlighted by Peak Talk. There's this other underlying thing that's pretty evident, not only in the video but certainly in the comments underneath, right? That you in your review, in some way, because you received this bike for free from Tavello, sorry, not Pandapodium, from Tavello, that you you ignored these issues because there was some financial gain potentially, that you were trying to maintain some relationship here that's you're part of this secret club getting all this free shit and you're just living the life of a gravy train YouTuber.
That's absolute bullshit, which Pig Talk is just trying to stir up because it's a narrative that he thought sounded good, so he was just going to call me out and kind of play it. Unfortunately for him, the points he made were mostly just incorrect. There weren't issues I had, and like this comment here. Also to mention, I took a pretty big dump on that L2 group set, which was just not up to scratch. So to think that I'm not just saying it how it is. And that's why I'm pretty defensive and upset, because having integrity in what we're doing and what I'm doing is like the basis for my own YouTube channel, the show, which we're coming up on 100 episodes. Most of the people that watch this know that. So what's he getting at? Like, it's just not the case. This person here commented, just go through some of the comments. Suck shit to anyone who bought this frame because they were fooled by a bunch of YouTubers shilling this crap. Always stick to the main brands when you're dropping thousands of dollars. No, most of the YouTubers that got this product think it's good, genuinely. Peak Talk has gotten a version that had these issues that the others haven't had, and that's just the situation. And I think Peak Talk playing into that culture war and playing into that narrative so hard when he could have just done an objective, non-biased review, positives and negatives, and laid it out, but he didn't. He played the narrative. And obviously then the people love it. The commenters love it.
Because here's the thing, Jesse. It's so easy to shit on Chinese brands because there are no repercussions. It would have been so easy for you to sit across from me and say, hey, the bottom bracket's a piece of shit, the seat post doesn't work, this is dog shit, etc., etc. And trust me, there would be no repercussions to those actions.
You're 100% right. Imagine, like, I would probably have gotten more views if I'd come on and had a whole bunch of issues or really overplayed some of the issues which had fixes. And like that's the narrative. That would have been better. If I come on here and say this Aero disc bike is amazing and it's so much faster based on the rides I've done and I haven't had that many issues and I think it's really good value, that doesn't do anything. So if I was to shill, it would actually be to do what Peak Talks is doing. Not that I'm saying the things he's said haven't been valid. I've seen the issues he's got. But that, if I could overplay that narrative, that's how I would have milked the YouTube thing of perpetuating that.
Do you want to talk about another one of those comments there?
I got a few more comments to respond to just because I get to defend myself. I'm up here every week. I get the chance to have my soapbox. Firstly, there were some people in the comments on his video replying to some threads, kind of backing me up, like being like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure he just thinks the bike's good," or the mechanic had it, basically defending doing what I'm doing now, and that was pretty cool. So if you got in the comments, thanks for that. Jesse has gone down in my estimation. He even had trouble with his BB, but skipped over it pretty quick. Many shit issues he hasn't mentioned. Is he getting paid or just really happy to get a free bike?
We'll answer the question.
Okay. He had trouble with his BB, skipped over it pretty quick. That's a lie. I made a pretty big deal of it on the show. The other issues I had with the bike, like the L2 group set, I did a 30-minute or 25-minute pick through of that, saying it's not close to Shimano. So that's a lie. Many shit issues he hasn't mentioned. No, I didn't have issues I didn't mention. That's a lie. Is he getting paid or just really happy to get a free bike? I'm not getting paid. I got the frame for free and I think it's really good. That's my experience. I would be lying if I said otherwise. Not to mention, there was another thread here along these lines, and just for probably for clarity of just the show overall, I'll just read out. There was a reply to that says, "It's a first freebie he got. They were crying for months on every podcast that no one wants to sponsor them. So when they finally started getting some money, they happy." That's kind of fair. We did have a whinge for a little while. Firstly, now maybe it's my problem because we didn't explain this. Giant, when the TCR was around, offered for me to get that. That could have been the first bike I built. I didn't really want to do that because I didn't feel quite good getting a mainstream name brand as my first disc bike and promoting that. It was better for you to get it, in my opinion, to compare to the Cervelo. There was a bit more of a story there. So I turned down that. Also, the wheel brand of Cervelo, which is Pertual, sent me a set of their rim brake wheels to test because they wanted feedback on them. I haven't spoken about it. Maybe I offhandedly mentioned it once. You wouldn't know. So with a lot of this stuff, they then said, well, we're developing this aero frame. Do you want it? Initially, I went, nah, not interested. Then I saw photos of it and went, oh, actually, it looks pretty competitive. Then I said yes. I didn't need to talk about it on the show.
No.
I didn't get paid. They sent the frame. I built it up. I didn't need to do anything of it. So this idea that this is like me talking about it positively isn't because I think it's good. It's because there's some weird monetary thing or shilling thing. It's just not right.
Part of this is my fault in the sense that I almost bullied you into doing this because I'm like, well, I'm sick of talking about you and your rim brake TCR. You're a dinosaur. You're irrelevant. Let's take up one of these opportunities and finally get you riding in disc brake, and we can kind of talk about the whole experience of moving to disc brakes.
Mm-hmm. We may be preaching to the choir. Most people that have watched this show and watched my videos or know me know that I'm not making stuff up to shill some Chinese frame for no benefit. We don't even there's no affiliate link. There's nothing. So again, I'm sorry if you're already a fan of the show and you kind of get it. I just, for my own mental well-being, I'm going to clarify this because it's not these implications that Peak Talk put out and then the commenters came around with went more than just disagreeing. People can disagree with what my opinions and stuff. I don't care. But questioning my integrity, I find really, especially when it's so incredibly just factually incorrect, I can't deal with.
And I've also got an issue with questioning the integrity of the people that built your bike, because ultimately that's what he's saying here, is that they have misled you or misled and therefore misled the rest of us because they didn't highlight this issue to you. And I don't think that's particularly fair on those two people. I know one of them very personally, and I take serious exception to that, actually. And he was named quite a few times in the comments there that he is in some way, misguided or has done not a good enough job here because he's too busy drinking lattes at his boutique cycling shop. Like, fuck that, as far as I'm concerned.
He thought that literally of his words, it's pretty good quality. He was impressed with the build. I'm saying I'm not denying what Peak Talk's gotten with his frame, but that's on Cervelo. That's not on us. Don't talk shit about Edwin. The bike that he built the frame that he built was good. He was pretty impressed with it, and so am I.
So that's follow up then.
Yes.
Why? What's in it for you to be defending Cervelo here?
Could the commenters answer? I don't know why. It would be better for views and more entertaining if it was crap and I just took a dump on it, wouldn't it? That's what people want. So, no, there's nothing for me to defend to defend them at all, other than I'm only defending them because it's basically saying I don't have integrity. If basically saying I've been lying, and I think the way now that his video is going to get a lot of views because it's already been. Let me refresh it. It's been up for 6 hours and it's on 8,000 views already. So that'll pass 30,000. There is still no comment from Cervelo. Need to respond and fess up and say they're going to do better because the issues he had were bad, so they should fix them. But that's that's for them to do.
It's not their fault. It's not your fault.
No, it's not on me to.
No, but you're dead right. I mean, this potentially, and again, it's on them. Like, can destroy their brand.
Mm-hmm.
We'll stop. 100%.
There was it's not a $2,000 frame. It's an $1,880 US frame, but that includes the handlebars. Take off the cost of the handlebars, which they are retailing for pretty cheap, only at $300 US. It's a $1,500 US, $1,530 US frame, not $2,000. Now, maybe being pedantic, but that moves it down. That's cheaper than Windspace. And so I just had to pick on that because when you start saying it's a $2,000 frame, again, comes with the handlebars, it's just not quite fair saying that. Because the whole thing of people are calling this is like a real top the most expensive Chinese bike, super expensive. which it's at the upper end, but take out the cost of the handlebars. It's not crazy. There's no Western frames you're getting from $1,500. Edwin was blown away. I told Edwin, he's like, how much is this? I was like, or $1,880 US, including the handlebars. He's like, fuck, that's good. And like, he's not lying or misled or an idiot. He builds bikes every day. Yeah.
All right. So you didn't experience the majority of these issues, et cetera, but do we have to rethink the way we even talk about bikes on this show?
Yeah, you should go to an effort to look for issues and question the mechanic once they've built it if they had issues, as I did with the Tavelo. Now, I don't think it should go to this next step of, they should be out there with micrometers measuring the roundness of the bottom bracket and the levelness of the brake mounts and things like that. I think the mechanic's job is to build the bike, and if there's a big enough issue, they'll run into it when they build it, and you should try and get that information from them to pass on. Which if maybe you don't do, I don't know if you would pass that on or you just go, it's fixed.
Well, I'm just trying to think back, like even the chapter 2. So I remember I was talking about the handlebars and the issues we had around some of the headset things, the solutions that we came up to. And the way I talked about that with you on the show was we came up with a solution that got the handlebars on there. And you could, now I think about it, you could argue that when I brought that subject up, I didn't then go back to the mechanic and measure it and come up with a more detailed breakdown of what the issues were, because I was looking at it essentially, I suppose, as a cyclist going, okay, we've come up with this solution. That's working. Handlebars are set now, got good force on them, good clamp. Yep, onwards we go. Yeah, I mean, maybe there are a few situations where someone said the bottom bracket tight tolerance was pretty tight.
Do you think there was, though? I mean, you have to, I'll generally push you to.
Yeah.
Like when you got that S5, I was peak torque. I was thinking, fuck, it'd be good if there was something wrong with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, yes, you should do that. But just because you're not there with 1,000 tools looking for half non-issues, and this was GC, we spoke to GC Performance before we record this, and if you had these issues, what's the chat? And he said, well, a few of the issues he had are things that the bike shop would fix. And so, yeah, if you're reviewing the frame set, it's relevant to know, but they're not like showstoppers. And so, yeah, if you're reviewing it, you should be trying to get those out of it. But just because you haven't picked through it to the level he has doesn't mean you're some Instagram reviewer who just rides it and says it's amazing, which is what he's inferred. And I don't know. You'd have to answer that, base, if you could remember if there's anything you've skipped over. It's certainly not the case for what I did. I was there the whole time the bike first got built by Jared. But again, that fits his narrative. It's awesome. Oh, Chris Miller's just this YouTube shill racer. He'll just ride it and say it's fast and gloss over issues. Yeah, like that's kind of funny. Like that fits the narrative, but it's just wrong. It's just not the case. You're gonna peak talk. Go find someone else to say that about, because it's not the case for me. I can tell you that. So you're full of it. That's about all I had to say on the topic. My review, I filmed the B-roll, so I will be doing a review of the bike. I just have not had time to, it's really annoying. I used to be able to just make videos whenever I wanted. I have no time. So I will be doing a review with all my thoughts, all my very few issues I've had with the bike. So if you want to know how the bike rides and that sort of thing, and all the other components too, the group that I'll be reviewing in that, the L2 group set, which I didn't get on with, the wheels and things like that. So that will be coming. And it's probably going to be the complete opposite of Peak Talk's video, because I didn't have most of the issues he did.
All right, quick word from today's show partner, Bike Exchange. So Bike Exchange is the premier online marketplace for connecting bike shops and customers. How it works is bike shops list their bikes on the website where customers can buy them either shipped or for local pickup. Now, they've just launched a new site, and their latest site does have heaps of new features on there and actually looks kind of cool. Now, we've got a couple of bikes we want to talk about. I got one, I think you want to have a chat about one as well there,
Yeah,
JC.
well, competition.
You start us off.
Who gets to pick the bike? Well, we're both going to do it this week because the one I saw was interesting. If you love the look of the Pinarello Dogma, ridden by Team Sky, now Ineos, you love that silhouette, you don't really want to dump 20K on it, you can get the Pinarello F5, which is the lower spec version, has a similar silhouette, with 105 Di2, 12-speed, 2024 model, so still this year or last year's iteration, $3,699.99. Not going to lie, if you want to get this race ready, you'll have to upgrade the wheels. You have to tinker a few things. But as a starting point, if you love that frame set, that's a great deal. If you live in Memphis, Tennessee, you can pick it up locally. They've got all the sizes in stock, and they can also ship around the US.
It's too much time being spent on YouTube worrying about value, things like this. I want to talk about super bikes. I want to talk about hyper bikes. That's why people are watching the NERO show. So I picked out the Bianchi Ultra RC with a full Dura Ace Di2 12-speed setup. And here's the thing. So this is on Bike Exchange currently for $999, so $10,000. Here's the thing with Bianchi, and you and I know this. They do not discount bikes. It is company policy. They don't discount bikes. So this is being done by the bike shop, and that's the genius of Bike Exchange. You are dealing essentially with the retailers themselves. What bike shop? Well, we're in Memphis, Tennessee, for the Bianchi Ultra Dura Ace spec. Get on there with the Arkea Sam6 spec. You will love
It's actually the
life.
same shop as the Pinarello. You can go in, have a look at my pick, the F5 Pinarello, have a look at Chris's pick, and then see what one you want to go with.
So we've mentioned this in the past. Bike Exchange have a NERO-specific landing page, bikeexchange.com/NERO, where there's a couple of bikes on their hand selected. Guys, go ahead and check out Bike Exchange. What they're doing is pretty cool. And thank you very much to Bike Exchange for supporting today's episode.
Can I get you to do me a favor?
Yeah.
Go on Instagram and go on Campagnolo official page. Look at the 3 pinned items there. So for those that are just listening, it's 3 at the top and it says the sound of passion. So it's a really interesting thing they've done. Where they're taking what was almost a semi-bug of the Campagnolo group set, which was the somewhat overly loud, you could almost be described as clunky shifting, and turning that into a feature. That's the sound of passion. Because last week you talked about SRAM versus Shimano and who's got the crispier shifting, to the point where you even said sometimes the Shimano Di2 rear shifts and I don't even know it's shifted because it's that smooth. Well, if you don't like that experience, get Campagnolo. You get the nice crisp shifting of the lever, the dunk, dunk down the cassette. And they've taken that and gone, yeah, like you love riding your bike, you love hearing and feeling the shifting. This is your group set.
It's like the machine gun with the thumb. Yeah, even though you don't actually use your thumb anymore on the wireless version.
And they've gone, yeah, you guys all make it super smooth and you know, technological. And we will double down and say, hey, you want to...
But this is the only, this is the only future for this brand, is to just play the legacy card as hard as you possibly can. Find, the person who owns the Colnago C68, like this is what they want to see, and they're doing a custom build of steel frame road bike. Sure. Put your Campy on there that sounds iconic. Absolutely. Got no issue with that. Fantastic.
Yeah. Cool video too. They've rigged up like 20 microphones around the bike and then they've pinned it. I just popped up and I thought that was pretty cool. They're just taking it and running with it. In the Italian world of bike parts and frames and stuff, rim brakes live on. Campy, the latest C68 frame set, comes in rim brakes. They're sticking with it.
Fake news.
Oh.
Yep. This is a fake news launch.
News?
Fake news launch. This is, we want to talk about boutique. This is a sort of boutique and trying to create some sort of look and feel from a brand, as you can imagine. There's very little substance, I kind of feel, to this. They've just churned out an old rim brake bloody frame set, charging, what are we, 7.5, almost, 7750 USD for the frame of a rim brake frame set with very little technological actual additions to it. Yeah, sure, it's there. They're producing it. part of me kind of thinks it's pretty cynical, but whatever. Maybe the market's there for it.
I think the market is there for it. You got a race bike. So if you're a Colnago C68 potential buyer, maybe you've got a Willier or Aero, whatever their one's called, the Filante, right? Yep. And you go, I got some cash burning a hole in my pocket. I want to build a La Perouse Sunday morning bike.
Yep.
I reckon it looks good at the cafe. You just want the simplicity of the rim brakes. The money, the cost of the frame probably is in part because of the fact that they then have to keep the mold going and producing them and hold them in stock for fewer and fewer people that still want rim brakes. But I'm giving kudos. Okay, you got to pay a lot of money, but you're getting something that most brands aren't offering. So you're now in niche pricing. Like maybe the first disc brake road bike, was that super expensive when that came out? Because that was futuristic tech. Now the old tech costs you money. Cool.
True. Just for me, like the future of rim brakes is the custom build. Like it is the custom frame builder who's been churning out those rim brake frames for 50 years. That's I know someone who's gone and done that. What was it? Bixus, I think the steel frame one that they've gone and got. So, so it's got that boutique flavor to it. I can't see a huge number of people wanting to spend custom build numbers in terms of price for essentially a mainstream brand's carbon mold. I don't know. Like, again, whatever. Like is it actually built in Italy?
So this is where you got to try and read between the lines. Being part of the C68 family, the C68 rim brake is a modular frame entirely built in Italy, hand assembled in Campagnolo using the handcrafted process of the C series. So it's hand assembled there. It's entirely built in Italy. Now, so it's so if I just take that and compartmentalize, it's hand assembled in Italy, which is putting the components on the bike. It is entirely built in Italy, which could mean, because it's a lugged frame, I'm pretty sure. In saying that, maybe it is entirely built in Italy. I don't know. How would you know? You'd have to speak to someone at Colnago. Yeah. I don't think people care anymore. It's an Italian frame, Chris. Colnago.
Sorry, it's passion.
It doesn't matter.
Yes. Can I show you a couple of other, while we're talking about bikes?
Oh, please do.
Can you have a look at the 3 bikes that I've taken photos of in the notes there?
I'm on an S-Works right now.
So let's start with this. So yes,
SL7.
I did a race on the weekend, State Masters Championships. And what Chris does when he goes to these races is he sniffs around the car park.
Looking for someone, mobile phone. And,
yeah. And I walk around and I take a few photos of people's bikes because, okay, so here's the thing about
this person must watch the NERO show.
So just chill, all right? Just chill. So what I love about these bikes, especially at Masters races, right? They're bikes built by people specifically. How do I articulate this? Like, there's real thought. There's a lot of thought that goes into this. They tend to be bikes that people hang on to for a long time because they're really, really happy with what they've created. So a lot of thought goes into the actual performance of these bikes. This is at a race. This is at a Masters State Championship race. They care about performance. So the first one here is an S-Works. Now, can you tell me what frame that is?
That's an SL7.
It's an SL6.
Is it?
Yes. It's an SL6.
Oh yeah, the more rounded head tube. How would they look? That looks surprisingly similar to the SL7.
Doesn't it? Yeah. And that was almost the reason I took this photo, because the guy's like, oh no, I went over. I was like, oh nice, S-Works, SL7, blah blah. I was like, no, it's SL6. It's like, yeah, that actually looks so similar. I couldn't believe that.
There actually is if you take SL6, SL7, SL8, aerodynamically, there's a surprisingly big gap between the SL6 and 7. The 7 to the 8, not that much. So, but yeah, just keeping that in mind. But he's got it tricked out.
He's got it tricked out. So he's gone a 52. So it's 1 by 52 with a 1033. So I was running 50 1033. This guy's gone 52 1033, and this is his bike. This is his everyday race bike, weekend bike, all that kind of stuff. But the other thing of note, obviously, those wheels, the Craftworks wheels. The same spec as yours, I think, or
these look like the 50/60s.
They're the 50/60s.
Not the 65,
Sorry.
75.
Yep. With the
These tires look gigantic.
yeah, so they're 30s front.
Okay.
And rear.
Interesting. NV cockpit.
Yep.
Separate bar stem.
I really like that setup.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. No, I like looking at this as well because I understand when we talk about stuff on the show, some people don't really care about decking stuff out, but I love looking through photos of people that do care. It's kind of interesting. But interesting choice there to not upgrade the frame and just slowly, bit by bit, change all the components. Those handlebars also look very narrow too.
Yes, so they're 36s.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the most recent update he'd made was the bars.
I rate it. Looks good.
Moving on to the Trek. So this is the Gen 6. I think I'm right in saying.
I think Gen 7 was the past generation. Oh, sorry, this is the previous prior.
This
doesn't have the
prior to ISO.
Doesn't have the hole in the thing.
hole in the thing.
Gen 6.
So I got to actually pick it up. I was surprised actually by the weight of it. I thought it was going to be heavier than what it actually did feel like. Those wheels. Now,
that is if you weighed it, you think maybe you'd be surprised. Like it's not light.
Okay, it's a bit of a chunk.
Yeah.
I was interested. I was talking to this guy because he was talking about what he's kind of considering his next set of upgrade, and it was the wheels that he really wanted to change and to go to the wider tires because he's only on 25s there.
Mm-hmm.
He is running tubeless front and rear on those Bontrager. I think they're only like a 19 mil internal on the 25s. So that's a setup that he stuck with for almost 10 years. I think it was 8 years or something like that. Loves it. But he loves it because the position that bike puts him in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's a sick looking bike.
I think you're kind of looking at that going, it doesn't look out of place. I mean, it looks out of place compared to the do-it-all frames, but I'd still ride that. Some nice wider wheels. The only thing is tire clearance.
Yep.
Some of these new wheels are so wide, you put on a set of 28, suddenly they're 31, 32, and you got your rear wheels rubbing. So I would make sure he's got the calipers out, measure the clearance there.
Next bike is a rim brake bike. Next bike is also a gold medal winning bike. So
really?
This fella won the Masters 6, I'm going to say. So of a certain vintage, this particular man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I found this one fascinating. Now I didn't have too much of a chat to him, but I found it fascinating because you looked at it and it was clearly a very lightweight build.
Yep.
They're the 30 mil wheels. He is not running them tubeless.
So this is a Lapierre Helios. Yeah. So for those that are just listening, and he's got a set of NV. Looks like maybe the older style ones with looks like a 40 mil deep and a 30 on the front.
Correct.
Interesting. Separate handlebar stem.
Dura-Ace rim brake, mechanical, Garmin Rally pedals, which I thought was interesting. You really don't see a lot of those. And the bars were Envy's. So bar and stem were Envy, but they're the older iteration of those real flat top aero handlebars, which from my experience are really, really stiff in a bad way. I don't know what's the word for it, but just the amount of road buzz you're getting compared with a 25 mil tire on a...
Maybe Peak Torque would like the bars.
Yeah,
send them to him.
This might suit him. A shallow rim like that. I mean, this bloke won. Just goes to show, but that would be a bone jarring old ride.
Yeah, this is because this is almost my sort of setup. This is what I would have been on, maybe with some deeper wheels. And yeah, like still nice bike. It would climb well, but yeah, if this rider eventually, I think if they eventually upgraded, got into a newer bike and accepted it was going to be, if they could accept it was going to be a bit heavier, I think they'd really enjoy the smoother ride. It makes a difference, not just in obviously just comfort at the moment, but how less fatigued you are after 2 or 3 hours of a road race.
Yeah.
It really makes a difference.
Yeah. It's little things that I find really interesting about these sort of bikes as well, because I mean, this guy's had this bike for, I think it was 8 years or something along those lines. And I love the fact he hasn't cut the steer tube. Like, it's just little things like that fascinate me about viewing people's bikes when, you know, they'll spend real time and effort in certain elements of bikes because they want this bike to perform. But then there's other kind of nods to just usability, sellability, resaleability. I didn't want to break it to him. This is probably not going to be a good time to be selling that bike. But anyway, needless to say.
Congrats, though.
3 wins.
How's up, Masters champs. Sick.
But just one of the other takeaways, those CRW wheels, Jesse, the cut through is pretty full on. And especially like these are people who, you know, they're funding their bike for, you know, budget and performance is this constant thing that they're dealing with. They want performance because they're at a bike race. But that CRW has really hit the home run with the wide tires, the slightly lighter than people are used to builds, and the prices. And they can put them on. I saw them on an S5. I saw them on, obviously, SL6s. I saw them on an SL8. I saw them on a Factor.
Mm-hmm.
They're cutting through as the wheel set of choice.
Good to see. Well deserved, I think. All right. So you've brought us over to gunning so we can chat about the equipment. So, all right. Congratulations, Chris. New South Wales Masters 3 road race champion in a big old kick from the breakaway. Chris Miller has won a sprint in 2024. Unbelievable scenes. Talk us through it. Who would you like to thank for your performance?
Well, it was a cold, crisp morning, as the riders. No, it was. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that. Can I just say that the medals are actually legit cool now. Like, I took that gold medal home, and like, because it's the Olympics on at the moment, like the kids are like, "This is amazing." My dad's a gold medalist. Anyway, all good.
How old are you in that age bracket?
Yeah,
Are you
I'm
at the top
43.
end? Okay.
I'm bang smack in the middle.
And it starts at 40.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I've got 2 more years in. It's interesting, like the curve of Masters riding in Australia is very much Masters 1, which is 30 to 35, is basically not really attended. Then it sort of slowly starts to pick up in Masters 2, especially you get the older 30 guys in.
Well, in a lot of countries, it doesn't start until Masters 2 from 35 and above. This 30 to 35 thing is nothing in some countries. Yep.
And then between 40 and 60, that's your big guts of it. I would argue that normally the 45 to 50 lads are the real, because it's funny, you get this thing where the guys that have got into the sport later, like me, are in it and like way too obsessed with it, like me. But then you also start to get the guys who were good as kids or juniors or actually rode as elites who dropped off for their 30s because they couldn't be fucked. And then they start to come back into it in their sort of 40s when they've got a bit more time, the kids are a bit older, et cetera, et cetera. And then you start to get that. So that pocket of the competition seems to be the thing. And that's essentially happened in my age group now. You're starting to get the guys who are good elites go, you know what, I'm going to start racing again. And so it just takes it back up a notch. So, no, I'm not going to do a full race breakdown though, Jesse.
Well, I'm kind of thinking, what are we getting out of this chat, Chris? What is the meaty bit? Is it the play-by-play of the race, or is there training chat? What's the part that you want to tell us all about?
Okay. So I want to do this. I want to talk about the sprint, why I won that, and why this really matters to me. Okay. So
by the way, I've known Chris for a little while now. Any previous year, literally 2023 and earlier, Chris winning even a reduced bunch sprint, unheard, not going to happen. Absolutely unheard of. So for Chris to beat Rod, who's a pretty good sprinter, and Mick, who's not really a sprinter but is just strong. Like, look at his legs. And they dropped another rider just prior to the sprint. Like, I was confident you could do it, but to actually go and pull it off is a big change in your racing. Can't overstate. You used to be like a climber-ish mixed rider who could maybe make a break.
But then what?
You're not going to go solo because you're not a strong man, and there's no way you're lucky to sort of hold the wheel in the sprint, to be honest. So, yes, this is a big deal for Chris Racing.
You're right. And I literally said that to Rob at the finish line. We crossed the line and I said to him, I can't believe I won that. I cannot believe I won that. And it's all because of exactly what you said. So basically about 2 years ago, I had a situation where I was doing just that, Jesse. I was going to races as one of maybe the fitter people in the race, but a combination of the fact that the guys around you are really strong, but also the fact that the kind of parkours and the courses that you're doing, they're just not super selective. They're not for a 61 kilo person with a threshold to me. I can't win those races. And to the point where I was doing masters crits, again, feeling like I could be one of the fittest people here and just never getting results, ever getting results. And so I essentially formulated a plan with Dan, which was two parts. The first was the strength training element, and the second was the actual
testosterone.
Lot of drugs.
Okay. Just kidding.
What is it? What's the D-bowl? No, okay, can't say that. So strength training and actually practicing sprints and doing sprint-specific training sessions. So as far as the strength training thing goes, I've now been in the gym for almost 2.5 years, which has been a long time. And I will reference a video that I did with Dan, and I'll link it down below. It's like 45 minutes of him talking about exercise to do, when to put it in, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of that. Go watch that. But in terms of what that did for me is I started obviously lifting, and I took a sprint that was a joke at like 800 watts, and it bumped up to 4 figures. I was getting a 4-figure sprint. So that's nice. Okay. And it's easy to sort of got to that point very quickly, starting to lift. And
you also put on weight, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know how much? Do you know what you weigh now? Like how much weight? I
made
did you
a
put
conscious
on?
decision not to weigh myself for many years now. But I did break that rule. So I'm about 68 kilos.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
and you were maybe not the bottom. Like what were you just generally? Chris at a West Head.
62. 63.
Okay.
Yeah. That kind of thing.
5-6 kilos maybe.
Yeah. So conscious decision to do that and to continually go and actually give up days of cycling to go to the gym. And that's carries on today. But the important sort of thing to say with that is like consistently going, that's really, really important. I have not seen big gains in my gym stuff for quite a long time. I mean, I changed the program that I do, but it's not like I'm suddenly lifting. You're not going to be a bodybuilder who just increases their weight. So it does become really almost frustrating because you don't see massive gains in the gym, but that's not the point of going to the gym. I kind of want to stress that because the gains come. And so there's the strength side stuff. The other thing, and we talk about this a lot, and this is something that only dawned on me probably, I reckon 4 or 5 months ago. I kind of, was getting this sprint that was, and look, I was never trying to win, right? I just wanted to have a crack every now and again in a sprint. And so I could maybe jag something one day. Yeah, when you haven't been doing sprints for decades, when you're actually involved in that particular thing, you don't know what to do. So I started going to things like, the weekly chop ride that we have here. And instead of bailing and going home early, I would stay for that last lap and I would finish 12th in the sprint and I would finish 8th in the sprint. But you'd get the sense of like, okay, that guy's starting to sprint. Right, well, shit, okay, I'll go. Because the other thing is you don't know when to start sprinting when you haven't done it for so long. And it's only when you put yourself back in that environment that you start to get a feel for what happens in the last 100, 200 meters of a race. And
it's like so many small things too, like when to shift. Do I shift to a harder gear? Do I leave it in the gear I'm in? And it is impossible as a coach to explain that to someone. That can only be felt out. And so, you have to just get out there and do it.
And so in that actual race, it was literally like that in the sense that when Rob started sprinting, who's a national crit medalist, I'm not sure he's won the title. He's certainly got a silver or bronze at a national level. And so when he started sprinting, I kind of got a sense that's when he was going to go. Because normally I would have waited for him to go and then missed the moment. And there would have been 5 meters and that was it. Not bringing that back. You get the sense of him going. I got on the wheel. I'm in the draft. And then I can remember thinking like we're about 100 meters to go. And I'm like, I can come around here. But at that point, I didn't know what to do because do I shift and kick again? Or do I stay in that gear and try and like sprint, but then I might not have enough power to go through the pedals. It could be too much for high cadence. But I knew from practicing those things that I could shift and kick. And I shifted and kicked and won. So, and posted up. So
Look at this post up too. It is, I'm calling it the bench press. It's elbows up, the big half bird, and just, oof. Great shot. That is a cracker.
Yes. Big shout to Aureliel for the
Oriole
for the photo.
Yep.
I'll link her stuff down below. I will say Oz Cycling finally got the memo on this. They've got photographers at these races. So we can get post-up photos. We can get photos of us suffering last wheel, because if you go to a Fondo, there's 100 photos of you doing the event. We go to a bike race, we want the same stuff. We want to share these things with our mates on the weekend that we went and did a real bike race. So well done, Oz Cycling, on that. Yeah. The only other thing I want to mention about this whole thing was complete raw dogging from me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no caffeine.
Oh, dearie me.
No
How
caffeine.
did you make it through?
No caffeine. So had a coffee or a bottled coffee on the start line. So it's a 2.5 hour race. And what I would have normally done is 2.5 hour race. We started with a coffee like that. And then for the last hour, I would have tried to go maybe 2 caffeine gels. Had nothing. Just forgot to get any. And I was panicking about this. Turns out,
you can still pedal?
You can still pedal.
With that 400 milligrams
Pretty
of caffeine
much.
circulating?
And I would almost
it's just not
argue,
quite as fun.
Well, I think I would almost argue in a situation like this race where it did become very tactical in the last half an hour, to have kind of had a bit more
Okay. I see where you're going.
like reality sense of what was going on.
Yeah. Maybe potentially tactically a bit more conservative.
Yes,
You're not kind
100%.
of like, yeah, I've got a tiny bit of momentum, counterattack.
Yeah.
And then you blow up and get caught. Yeah.
Yep.
Good,
Yep.
good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say it was actually it was an advantage, though I must admit it's when you'd kind of been used to using a bit of caffeine for a road race, it's a bit of a concern. The only other thing just on bike I want to mention is I ran into you during the week.
I've also been raw
Park.
dogging.
Yeah. So you're in there doing a few. What were you doing?
Sets of sort of VO2 max efforts, 40-20s, sets of 9. Raw.
No headphones.
Just doing a Chris Miller, listening to the sound of the trees.
So talk me through it. How did it go?
So it wasn't on purpose. I left the house and realized I didn't have my headphones, and because I have my windows to ride are so short, there was no turning back. So first effort, just nothing, no music. In the short term as a one-off, it kind of worked because it was this challenge. Like, how hard can I go without music? So the novelty was there. So I got through one set. That was fine. I did embarrassingly do the play music through the phone in the back of my
speakers.
Yep. So I loaded up my playlist. What was the first song that came on? It was Venom by Eminem. And that was it. That was blasting from my back pocket at max volume from the iPhone 13 Pro.
So you're doing 40-20. So when you're doing your 40, you're probably doing 50 Ks an hour.
No, I'm on the gravel bike.
Oh, okay.
So it's a bit...
You're not hearing any music. Like, what are you doing?
You pick up, well, in the rest period before you restart the next effort, you pick up a bit of spring in your step from the music. But no, yes, you can't hear it when you're going that fast. Yes, definitely.
It's close. I've had to do it a few times. It's very close to bailing.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I would almost argue, it's if you're doing a 20-minute effort.
Oh dear.
I reckon. Would you bail on a 20-minute? So you're doing 3 by 20.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Would you bail with
I'm not doing
no headphones or no nutrition?
Oh, both.
Both?
Yeah, I'm soft. See, well, there's two camps, because there's the camp of it's better training without music because it's hard, it's mentally harder, so you get tougher. And so it's better training, which, okay, I don't subscribe to, but I'll hear it out. Then there's the other camp, which is more my camp, which is the music allows you to do more power. More power equals more stimulus, equals more adaptation, equals better gain in the long term. So, yeah, 320s without music. Oh, I'm doing that the next day and coming back. I'm bailing.
320s without nutrition?
Like from a physiology point of view, it's almost a similar story. Less nutrition, less power, more fatigue, more internal stress, less gains.
What about one of your 1 hour medium intensity efforts? See, I reckon you could do that no nutrition.
I've done that before, actually. I'll go in thinking, oh, it might just be an endurance day, but then I just happen to feel really good, so I'll just swap the sessions around. I'll do an effort on just water. If I'm doing like an hour endurance, I'll just have water sometimes.
Yep.
So, and then I'll just, and I'll get through it, but it's just suboptimal. The rest of the day, you're more tired than you need to be because you've stressed your muscles more depleted. So it's not ideal. But maybe, 40-minute effort. I'm not doing 320s at or above FTP with no carbs.
No.
Even by accident. I just move it around.
I will say I think like something like Centennial Park where there is something happening, I think I'm more likely to do that session there with no headphones than I would be if I was down in Berry and I was just doing like hill reps and I'm like 360 watts, 170 heart rate, and it's just like the birds, tarmac. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm really here, aren't I? Yeah, I reckon I'd get 7 minutes into the second one and go, it's not
good. They're good openers. We'll come back tomorrow. That's what you do if you fail a session or something comes in. You just call it openers and try again tomorrow.
Okay, while I'm on that, can I ask you this? Sure. This was last week for me. I think it was. Yeah, it was last week for me. I did a 4x8 minute session. It's probably my worst session as well, 4x8 minute session. And it was dog shit. Like got halfway through the second one and I'm just absolutely trying to squeeze everything out of my body, and I was doing power that was not too far above medium intensity, like sub-threshold power. And there was just nothing else there. And I'm like, no, do this session. Like, just get it done. And I did. I got the session done, right? Dog legs. The next day, that was in the afternoon. Went out the next morning, diamonds.
Yeah.
Diamonds, bloating, no chain, no chain attached to my bike.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me a few times. This dog day followed by diamonds.
Dog of a day to a diamond of a day.
But it's only ever happens when the dog day is an effort. Like it can't be just I went out and rode endurance and I felt crap all day. That's never normally followed by diamonds. It's normally this really, really cement feeling that just won't go away. Wake up the next day, suddenly that changes. Have you ever had that? Have you had any experience with that?
I also get this. The problem is we need a bit more context because you'd have to look at before the dog day, what was the run in? And then I'd also generally look at heart rate. What's the heart rate doing on the dog day? That can then kind of get you a closer idea. If you say, like, what the hell does a dog day mean? Like, there's 20 different ways you can have what someone would call a dog day. That may impact if you're going to have diamonds in the legs the next day or you're just going to feel even worse. So I can't really say it happens. Yeah, 100% it happens, but there's different types of dog days. Sometimes if you're super fresh, coming in off a couple of easier days, and that first one back, your body's not quite ready yet, and that'll feel worse. You push through it, you grit through it, and you got the next thing, like, holy crap. And that's literally just because that's, as I said, openers.
Because I always used to be jealous or sort of in awe of the way you would do, like, if we'd traveled for a race and we're doing a what do the Americans call it? Shakeout ride. Shakeout ride. And you were like, no, I need to go harder today. And you did this thing where you're like, okay, the race is the next day. And suddenly the day before you're doing like Big O2 efforts. I'm there going, what the hell is going on? And next day you'd be flying.
Yep.
I always found that interesting. That was there a feeling that you would have, or was there a process?
There's a number. There's a TSB number. There's a load number that I'd want to be in a range of. There's also a sensation you get when I know when I'm too fresh that I want to work through. And so and I love that. That's where I know I'm going to have a good day the next day because I know this ride's crap. I'll force some more load in than I normally would. You know, some of those rides I'll do 2.5 hours, 3 hours
I remember.
some days. And yeah, it's a sensation backed up by load numbers that I'm trying to hit and also what the heart rate's doing the day before. Yeah, and you come out good the next day. I'm not a very good coach right now. I can't remember what there would be a series of things that are happening in the body that would lead to that. Blood volume is definitely going to be related. If you're a little too fresh, your blood volume might have dropped. That's one of the reasons why your heart rate can be higher. So getting that blood, and the blood volume responds within 24 hours really quickly. So generally that higher load ride can get the blood volume up the next day. That's one of the adaptations. There's probably there would be a whole series of other ones I can't remember. But yeah, you're just trying to get yourself into that state on rest day. And a lot of people, they don't do that. Their plan says an hour pre-race ride, an hour shakeout, and then they do that, and then they do the race, and they don't have a great race, and then maybe they go the next day and they go, shit, I felt way better today. Yeah, we've all done that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's basically what you need to avoid. Part of it's numbers, part of it is knowing what the sensations are. And if you can get those two, and now I can almost 100% success rate of coming in for a race perfect.
Yeah.
Once you can figure it out.
I reckon 95% of the Masters 3 field on the weekend were exactly the same. We all did our 1 hour, little few openers on the Friday, because every person I spoke to, including myself after the race, just went, the first 45 minutes of that was hell, absolute hell. And I think we were probably all tapering for something that was longer than what our actual effort was.
Yeah. Well, the downside of 2.5, 3 hours of hard openers is I'm burning through some glycogen. And so that's not going to be as useful if I had to go out and do Peaks Challenge the next day. So then it's a whole other rabbit hole of, well, what is your race? Are you doing an 8 hour Grand Fondo? Well, you want to come in fresh or suffer through the first few hours. Your glycogen will be a little higher. That'll pay off at the end of the race. If it's a criterium or a 2 hour road race, you need to come in hot. Little more fatigue in the system, and you'll probably feel really good at the start. So again, it's not like the same run in for every race. It depends what the race is. 100. Yeah. Do you feel like you've got that down? Do you know? Were you assessing that the day before on the pre-ride?
The answer is no. I have definitely not got the 2.5 hour, 3 hour road race prep right. Hard race, hard fondo, yes, definitely. Because I'm well versed with this is going to suck for a while, but it'll come good eventually. No, I haven't got that, and that's almost why I started this chat in the first place. It's just not a targeted effort that we do very often anymore.
But it's not rocket science to figure out. The day that you mentioned you were I am absolutely flying. I have had those days in the past few weeks too. What the hell did you do the day before? It's not hard to figure out because you did it. You got your body into that state. Go and look at what your TSB was the day of it. What sort of efforts did you do in the 2 days prior? How many easy days did you have even in the 5 days prior? Like zoom out a bit further. Because if you felt amazing on that day, imagine if you did a crit race that day. You've got that in you. You just got to go look at it. Yeah.
All right. I've been watching cycling vlogs.
Yep.
Jesse. I know that
specifically Sydney.
Sydney.
Yep.
Sydney-based cycling vlogs. The vlog is back. Calling it. I love it. This isn't some. Oh, no, it is. It's voyeuristic. Let me shout out firstly who I'm watching.
Now, by the way, this wasn't, hey, could you watch my vlog? It wasn't someone sent it to you. This is pure YouTube algorithm magic.
Giving me what I want.
Yep.
Giving me what I want. Yeah, so a gravel one from Bryce Waters, young sort of triathlete guy here in Sydney, Felix Oates, Chris Vivas, guy down the Shire. Doesn't do as many as he used to, but I like some of his old ones. Guy called Max. Just like the one namer.
Max. Yep.
Max, and Josh Kwan, another one here in Sydney.
Yeah.
I love it. It's I don't know if I want to analyze why I love it, but I I'm enjoying, because I know there's a whole narrative at the moment. It's like, oh, vlogs are dead, all that kind of stuff. But they're just, it's like this little insight into different worlds of, because I live in Sydney.
Yes.
Right? And so, but I'm getting to see all the other people doing the sport that I love in the place that I love.
Yep.
But I'm seeing how they do it.
Josh Kwan, for example, doesn't do a ride on his own. All he does is group rides, social rides. It's the opposite of how we ride.
It's a different galaxy.
And it's seriously entertaining. You just get to watch someone do.
It's so Felix Oates did one, and he was riding Akuna Bay. Everyone who follows me on Strava, or we talk about riding up there all the time. I couldn't tell you the last time I rode with someone up there. He's up there. He's doing a coffee stop at Church Point. He's doing another coffee stop at Tempo. That's about 15 kilometres apart from each other. And then he's doing another coffee stop at the end of the race. I haven't done a coffee stop in, I don't know.
The first one was the other Sunday after that race we did.
That was my annual coffee stop. And so I find it fascinating watching these guys experience, where we ride and how
doing
they do
the rides
it.
you also do. I wonder if this is a Sydney thing. I know there's probably New York. Okay, the big cities probably have them. I wonder if this is this we living in a weird universe where for some reason the Sydney ones have popped up, or is the vlogger back? Is this a smaller town US? Is there, Nebraska cycling vloggers?
I would love to think that every city has like dozens of these guys, and everyone's just watching their Felix Oates in, San Francisco, whatever it might be. There's probably heaps of them there. And obviously the guys that have cut through from an international perspective, obviously Tommy, the cycling tattooist who now lives in Portugal, which is kind of big move for the big man. And who's your other sort of global cycling vloggers? You can't really call Tyler a cycling
vlogger. Not anymore, no, because it doesn't really do vlogs anymore. They've all the traditional cycling vloggers, at least from my algorithm, have all gone away, and it's been replaced with my local vlogger.
Yep, that's what I want.
And they're good. I watch them all. It's fascinating. I love it. Yeah.
And Max, I want to shout out Max as well. Max, he's like, again, it's another insight because he drives to all these rides.
See, I
find that interesting.
Yeah.
Drives to Akuna Bay.
Club ride at 5:45 a.m. and you live half an hour away, riding time. That's pretty early. Yep.
Keep it up. I'm loving it.
And thank you, YouTube, for just watch this. I'm like, okay, click.
Have you ever done a vlog? You've got a few vlogs on your channel, don't you?
They're probably rubbish. Yeah. I think I've done a few.
You're in a lot of my vlogs. It's like, what's Sydney's best bike path? All these sort of things. 800 views. Yeah. Anyway. All right, Jesse, episode 96.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that could be 96 in the books. Are we going to do anything special for the 100th?
It is 96.
Yeah.
Are we going to do anything for 100th episode? I don't think so. What's wrong with this?
Yeah,
it's good, isn't it? People want to listen.
Chill. Yeah. 100's just a drop in the ocean. All right.
Maybe for 500, we'll do a big...
I think 500. Yeah.
Have a bit of a party. Yeah. See you in a few years.
See you next week.
Bye.